Hey, how's it going? The question today is, can you beat Borderlands the Pre-sequel as a stormtrooper? I'll be playing as level 70 Wilhelm on Ultimate Vault Hunter mode, which is the hardest difficulty in the Pre-sequel. And the laser I'll be using today is MINAC's Atonement. I'm using the prismatic Bulwark Shield, which boosts lasers all around. However, the absorb chance was why I mainly chose this shield, because no matter how bad stormtroopers are at aiming, they never seem to hit each other. And then I'm also using a class mod that focuses on laser improvements. Finally, I'm using the Cyro Oz Kit because I like movement speed. If you listen to the sound that this laser makes, it sounds fairly close to a stormtrooper blaster. This laser also shoots out a random element. It can be fire, cryo, corrosive, or shock. This laser is pretty strong. It's easily able to clear out smaller enemies. I met Unhandsome Jack and had to protect him from getting beat up too bad by the Lost Legion. Alright. First mission done. Okay, here's the first boss. I dropped into the first boss fight of the game, which is a tiny man in a robot with flamethrowers on his knuckles. This is the first point where you could see how this laser could potentially be a problem. If it's constantly shooting fire against an enemy that's resistant, it's not going to do much damage. I'm about to run out of ammo now. It's a good thing that Flame Knuckle is a pushover, and that really didn't apply to this fight. I can't believe that I didn't notice this before, but the first boss in BL2 also has Knuckle in their name. There we go, I got him. I took him down and headed into the moonshot pod. Jack launched me and I walked into Serenity's Waste. In my opinion, the Pre-sequel has some of the coolest character cutscenes out of any Borderlands games. Aside from that, I met Cashew for the first time, and then I moved on to killing some Kragans. I used my body as a fuse and got turned into Electra. I ran a bit further and made it to Deadlift, which started another cool enemy cutscene. Here's Deadlift. I was able to take his shield off easily and then went down. I thought I was going to take the first death of the run, but I was able to get a second wind at the last second possible. The rest of this fight was extremely easy, and I shredded his health bar within 30 seconds. He dropped me his unique laser, which I also couldn't use. Something to note, Captain Flint in Borderlands 2 also drops a unique blue item. I met back up with my best bud Cashew and took the Orbitron while also finishing the mission, making sure to drop the sniper as well. Here's where the lasers start showing its flaws. If you're too close to an object, the lasers will get stuck and hit the surface instead of hitting the enemy. You'll see this throughout the video. I died for the first time this run. After I spawned back in, I picked up the last prism and got rid of the Darksiders, which have to be a reference to stormtroopers or the dark side in general. This mugger took me a solid 2 minutes to kill. It was completely avoidable, but I didn't care. That guy tanked ammo. After that time waster was done, I headed towards the next boss fight. Red Belly or Red and Belly were the next bosses. I died. His health doesn't even reset. Oh, okay, good. I was gonna say, that would be too easy if it didn't even reset. I went down, but was able to get an easy second wind off a scav. Now that Belly was the only one left, it was a short fight. Okay, I can get the second wind here. There we go. If you can believe it or not, a Claptrap got electrocuted again, and it looks like the same animation from BL2. I had a bad feeling about the Marif and tried to pre-fire him, but with my Stormtrooper aim, I missed every shot. So Jack was the one who ended up killing him. I talked to Hugh Jackman and turned in the mission. Haha, funny, boob. I got in one of the coolest vehicles in the franchise and actually felt like I was in Star Wars now. I made it to the console and activated the pumping station. It took me over 5 minutes to redirect the flow, but eventually I was able to find it. I dumped the methane over the lake of lava and it turned to ice. I was struggling to kill the badass Kragan and had one of the funniest deaths so far. Oh, bro. After that, I made it to Pity's Fall. Here's another example of how the laser won't be able to hit enemies if you're too close to the floor, which I feel like is fitting for a stormtrooper. I was making my way to the engine room now. On the way, I had to go through this jump pad section, which was pretty fun. I finally made it to the engine room and was able to destroy the power stabilizer. Oh. There we go. Unfortunately, after breaking it, I lit myself on fire and took another death. My body also melted into the floor after. Through the floor. After I died, I got lost and it took me about 10 minutes to find my way back to the computer. I deactivated the force field and now it was time to fight the biggest geek in the Borderlands franchise, the boss son. This fight is a bit different. You have to destroy his shield generators before you're able to deal damage to him. That didn't matter the first time because I died. I was able to get a good portion of his shield chopped off before I went down. Luckily, I got back up pretty easily and the rest of the fight was a breeze. This is where you find out that the boss's girlfriend was an AI the entire time. Now do you understand why he's the biggest dork? I turned in the mission and now it's time to build a robot army. First I had to wait for the train, which seems funny to have on the moon, but there has been more mind-boggling things in this franchise. I had to use my slam to get through this window and then I got revenge on these scavs. This section of the game was super annoying. I would get if you had to let the turrets kill 5 scavs, but 12 is honestly ridiculous. I eventually got it done and moved on to the next step. I escorted the robot and installed Felicity, which I can't say I felt too good about.
Look, I'm really sorry, kiddo. This is the only way. Vault Hunter, do it.
Installing.
Now it was time to fight a constructor with legs and arms, which is really cool. The first time I played the pre-sequel, I was stuck on this boss for quite a while. I was getting pretty lucky with the corrosive lasers being the main damage type coming out. I did end up taking it down, but this combat loader was in the wrong spot at the wrong time and got me back up. Felicity didn't have much health left and the rest of the fight went easy. This run has been fairly easy so far and is nowhere as difficult as an OP10 challenge run on BL2, but you just wait until the RK5 fight. I gently helped this claptrap out, and then I helped out the first scientist and finished the mission. I grabbed the family photo, the teddy bear, and then finally helped the last scientist, which gave me the cloaking device. I gave it straight to Jack, which surely wouldn't be a mistake in any future installments. Jack then massacred the scientist that I had just saved. And I tried to eavesdrop on Lilith and Roland with no luck. Now I made it to the coolest jump pad section in the game. I was flying across these platforms to make it to the regulators. I destroyed B first and then took out A right after. I made it to the command station and activated the shutdown sequence. I then used my gamer skills to make sure I hit the blue colored cylinder. I was too fast at this final section, so I had to wait about a minute for the time to just run out. I made it to the most obvious boss arena I've ever seen, and now it was time to fight Robot Zarpadon. My laser was absolutely shredding her shield. I got EMP'd and went down, but I was able to find a second wind. There's not too much to say about the first phase of this fight. It's a big robot that you shoot. My only advice would be to not activate an explosive and then walk right into it. While I was down, Zarpadon got her shield back, but I melted it as soon as I got back up. I took her robot down and now it was time for the final phase. This is the most Dark Souls looking boss, even the name is very Souls-like. I also got my first legendary drop of the run, which is very cool for the pre-sequel. She had some pretty unique attacks, like this one where she would send a wave of energy at me. Her melee attacks stand out the most just because of how far she launches, and the animation is also super cool. Jack took her out and we made our way to the Eye of Helios. He had a funny visual glitch where he looked like he was shooting lasers out of his wrists. We activated it and he revealed that it was the Eye of the Destroyer.
Oh great, what now?
Sit plot twist!
Jack, I'm sorry.
I'm not.
Lilith, Roland, and Moxie crossed Jack and activated a singularity trying to kill us. I might have reacted a little slowly to this scrap metal flying at my face, but we ended up getting lucky and made it out alive. At this point, Jack's mental state was getting worse. I turned in the mission and now it was time for the most painful part of this entire playthrough. I was making my way to the elevator room about to face off against Evil Bunker. This is another really cool boss arena because this fight is in space against a giant flying spaceship. My laser did almost 0 damage against RK5 and it was also extremely hard to make my shots connect with it. Because of how painful this fight was, I included every death in a quick montage. Here's the first one. On my second attempt, I was able to get a bit further until I got sniped midair. There was no enemies around me, so I died again. Here was my third death. Again, there were no enemies around. For death number 4, this was the saddest example of how if you're not in an open space, the lasers just won't hit the enemies. Attempt number 5, I made really good progress, but I made the mistake of going up to this top section where I went down and got stuck with no second wins. On attempt 6, a guardian killed me, and then on the next one, a different guardian killed me. And if you can believe it or not, on attempt 8, a different guardian killed me. Attempt 9, I got stuck on the top again. I didn't really learn my lesson from earlier. I barely missed the second win for my 10th death, and the same thing happened again on run 11. After dying 11 times, I started trying out new strategies. I realized that I was able to jump up and stand on this ledge in the elevator, which blocks you from all damage. I would peek out when it was safe and try to get off a few shots before it flew away. The only thing I needed to worry about was my oxygen running out. I'd come over to this bubble when it was low, fill it up all the way, and then go back to safety in the elevator. For some reason, this electricity attack was able to hit me through the wall and ended up killing me. This only happened once and I have no idea why. Attempt 13 went fairly well, except for the fact that I forgot to keep my oxygen filled up. If you run out, it starts taking off your health slowly. Watching back the gameplay, I realized that I shouldn't have tried to fight this guardian and should have just ran to the oxygen bubble first. I wasn't able to get a second wind and ended up dying. I decided to call it quits and try again the next day. When I came back the next day, I had a really good attempt 14. I was making sure to keep full on oxygen and only peeking out to shoot when it was safe. Once it barely had any health left, it will sit above the main platform and alternate between laser and rocket attacks. Here's when the biggest problem happened. For some reason, my laser would just not do any damage. After peeking out for about a minute, I just ran outside because at this point I had nothing to lose. I was doing no damage either way. I then tried to throw some stock grenades up, but those weren't doing any damage either. I ended up going down and bleeding out with no second wins. Skipping forward to the next day, I got RK5 back to the same spot again. This is when I was finally able to find a way to deal damage. I just had to let my wolf drone chip away at its health slowly while I hid in the elevator. I got impatient, so I decided to use the jump pad and fly right up to RK5 and then use my action skill. I was ready to end this fight. I kept rinsing and repeating the same strategy while making sure to keep a few enemies alive for second wins. This gameplay was an example of that. I knew that the fight was almost over, and finally on my 15th attempt and third day, I was able to destroy RK5. I was almost to the end of the game now, but before I finished it, I wanted to head over to the Super Mario Bros. Easter egg. It's a fully decorated Mario Bros. Section with a few enemies and a chest at the end. Once I left there, I made it to the final boss area and had a mini boss I needed to fight first. This is one of the most disgusting animations in Borderlands. The Superior Guardian is pulling smaller guardians out of its stomach. This guardian has a pretty small health bar, so this fight wasn't too bad. I don't think that it resists any elements either, so I was always dealing a good amount of damage. I froze the guardian and shattered it. I touched the iridium wall and teleported into the vault. In my opinion, this is the coolest boss arena in the game. The Sentinel somewhat reminds me of the Bloodwing fight because of how the elemental phases work. There are 6 phases total to this boss fight. In the first one, the Sentinel resists corrosive damage. Once you kill it, its health bar will completely reset, and now it will be resistant to fire and corrosion. The best damage type for this boss fight was shock, and it seemed like I was getting an even amount of each element. Now I was in the 3rd phase, and I finally took it out. I thought the fight was over until the giant Empyrean Sentinel started crawling out of the floor. This is the most visually cool boss fight in the pre-sequel, and in most other Borderlands games also. In the 4th phase of this fight, the first head deals slag damage, which I didn't have to worry about elemental resistance here. I finally dealt enough damage and ended this phase. For the 5th phase, the Sentinel is now doing
Electricity!
He has a cool attack which sends these beams of electricity up from the floor. For the final and 6th phase of the boss fight, the Sentinel switches to
Corrosion!
He has some really cool moves in this phase, and it is the best out of the 3 in my opinion. It will slam its hands down and start flooding the arena with corrosion. With my trusty laser blaster, I was able to take out the Empyrean Sentinel, the final boss in the game. RK5 was the true final boss of this run because I didn't die once here. Before I end the video and rank the difficulty of this run, I wanted to give my opinion on the pre-sequel. I think it is a really good and more importantly underrated game. It has some very unique boss designs and enemy types such as the great variation of guardian enemies. And laser weapons are some of the coolest and best weapons in any Borderlands game. All of the Vault Hunters are amazing as well. Claptrap might be pretty goofy, but he has some interesting pros, like he doesn't consume oxygen. Don't get me wrong, in no world is this better than Borderlands 2. However, if you haven't played this game in a few years, I recommend revisiting it. I had a great time playing. I turned in the final mission to Jack and beat Borderlands the Pre-sequel as a stormtrooper. I'd rank this a 3 out of 10 when it comes to the difficulty of the entire game, and the RK5 fight by itself was a 7 out of 10. I wanted to have fun with this challenge and wasn't going for something painful to complete. I want to thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more. Leave a comment also. I love hearing from all of you and I try my best to respond to everyone. I hope you have a great rest of your day. See ya.